Everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. Would you rise in body or in spirit, turning in our teal hymnal to number 1003, that's 1003, as we ask together, where do we come from?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery.
Mystery,
Where are we
mystery.
come from?
Life is a
Where
riddle and a
are we
mystery.
going?
Mystery,
Where do we come
mystery.
from?
Life is a
Where
riddle
are
and a
we
mystery.
going?
Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going?
Thank you. Have a seat.
Good morning. My name is Joe Libben, and I serve this congregation as a lay worship leader. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. For over 161 years, we have been gathering together, Sunday after Sunday, to ponder life's biggest mysteries, celebrate life's joys, and weather life's challenges together. Here at UUAA, we do not lay claim to any one definitive answer or even one particular school of thought. Indeed, within these four walls, we host and inspire thousands of answers to the questions that have nagged at our consciences through the ages. In a sense, every week we are seeking an answer to the question posed by St. Mary Oliver. What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. We're so glad you're here. Please join us for a welcome session in the Redmond Room, just down that hall on your left, after the service. Someone will be there to answer your UU-related questions and help you get oriented within our congregation. If you're a newcomer joining us online, please visit uuaa.org/newcomer survey and let us know more about you and your interests. This will help you get connected to our organization. And I invite you now to take a moment to wave at the folks who are joining us online or at a later date. Hello. And now please look around at the community that so lovingly holds you in all of your complexity. We are so glad you're joining us today. It is good to be together. Today's question box service will give everyone an option to ask the questions that have lain heavy on your heart or taken up real estate in your mind. I hope you share your ponderings with us. We are gathered in community. We are gathered for worship.
Thank you, Joe, and I'll add my welcome and good morning to everyone. Across North America, and indeed even the world, as Unitarian Universalists gather, we often light a chalice at the start of our gatherings. The symbol of the chalice can mean many different things to each of us. Included among them is that spirit of love, that flame of caring for one another in community that we kindle alive every time we are gathered together. I'd invite us to hold that in our hearts as Lori Carbone will help physically light our chalice. And if you're newer to us, we have familiar words that we recite together every Sunday as we light our chalice. We invite you, if you're joining us virtually at home and have a flame or candle nearby, to light yours at home as we light ours here. Let us join our hearts and our voices as we say together, "We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace." Thank you, Lori. We in Unitarian Universalism are a community, and across the world communities, that are not bound together by a single creed that we are all required or expected to believe. Rather, we gather together in our commitment to one another, to companioning one another as siblings on life's journey, as we each learn and grow and explore what it means to be human together. We capture this commitment to one another through the reciting together of our covenant, a set of voluntary promises that we freely offer to one another in the spirit of community. The words will appear on your screens in just a moment, and I invite us to once again join our hearts and our voices as we offer these words of promise to one another. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another. May it always be so.
Do you have a place you go to daydream, to think, to wonder? I do it everywhere, but I particularly like the woods behind my house. But the beautiful thing is that anywhere we go, we carry that capacity with us. Today's story for all ages is How Do I Wonder by Jonna Davey, illustrations by Brenda Rodriguez. Have you ever heard of a place you can go to question and daydream and let your brain grow? It's right in your head, your thinker, your mind. And not all the questions need answers defined. Like, where does the wind go? And where does it rest? Do rainbows have homes in a shell or a nest? Do lizards in Thailand and lizards in Spain speak different languages? Or are they the same? Did dinosaurs know how to smile, to frown? How could you tell they were happy or down? There's not much you need when you think about thoughts. Maybe sun, maybe shade, or a safe, cozy spot. Slow down and breathe in all the way to your heart. Eyes closed and mind open, your journey will start. Who lights the fire for stars in Orion? Who hears my wishes blown off dandelions? If I plant a treat, will a candy tree grow? Do snails look at turtles and think they are slow? What if we filled up piñatas with seeds? Would parties plant all of our flowers and trees? Are there orchestras made up of crickets and birds? Do brass bowls, tea kettles, and whales sing with words? Brains are like magic. They make their own joy.
They really don't need lights, screens, or toys. Our minds are miraculous, really, it's true. No one can think thoughts exactly like you. Are there treasure maps showing us where to find peace? Are they carved out by bugs hidden deep in the trees? Maybe the maps show us how to create peace deep within us. Could peace be innate? Where are feelings stored? In your heart? In your eyes? Do they come and then go when we laugh, when we cry? Can you visit happiness? Pop in and say hi. Can we make it or bake it or eat it like pie? Pie makes me happy. And what actually is on the top side of clouds? When I'm standing on earth, am I upside down? When will I be old? And how young is young? 2 years? Or 16? 101? When you eat atoms, do they disappear? Do they have a color, or are they just clear? What is the name of the color you'd choose to paint all of the sunsets of late afternoon? If you had 2 wings, but also had fins, through the sea could you fly? In the sky could you swim? Why don't bunnies roar? Why is water wet? Hello. Why can't I fly? Why do I forget? Now you know of a place you can go to wonder and ponder and let your brain grow. Curiosity is like a magical door that leads to a land where you'll never be bored. To set your brain free, remember to think. Contemplate seeds, dandelions, pink. Explore the clouds and where and the why, treasure maps, dinosaurs. Plan how to fly. Seek out the rainbows and question all day. There are limitless answers. Go, let your mind play. The end. And now is the time in the service where we let our most curious depart and follow their leaders, walking to their spirit spaces as we sing with love and affection.
Wherever you go, find your truth. Wherever you go, find your truth. You are loved, you belong. You are loved, you belong. Find your truth, find your truth. Wherever you may be in life, truth. Wherever you go, always dream. Wherever you go, always dream. You are loved, you belong. You are loved, you belong. Always dream, always dream. Wherever you may be in life, dream.
For those who don't know, that beautiful little tune we just sang was written by one of our congregants, Lori Reese, and is included in our national resources now as a piece of music all of our congregations are able to use. Thank you, Lori, for sharing your creativity and gifts with us. August is always a time where we have a fair number of visitors in our congregation, so I'm going to provide just a little bit of context on what we're doing today. Today's service, which we call a Question Box service, is participatory. You get to help decide what we reflect on together in today's service by sharing questions. Now, don't fill anything out just yet. Give me a moment to continue contextualizing, but also providing some logistical support. If you did not receive a sheet of paper when you were entering the sanctuary or you need a pen or pencil, something to write with, please raise your hand and one of the ushers will bring you either or both if you need either or both. If you're joining us online, you will have the opportunity to participate online. I will explain how as well in a few moments. So you are going to be crafting questions that you're going to submit, and then I will randomly pull them out of a box, sight unseen, and you will see me wrestling here with answering whatever questions may emerge. There are a couple of kind of general themes or categories that are typical for these types of questions. So often there are getting to know the minister better questions. Reverend Manish, tell us about X, Y, or Z, about yourself or what you think or whatever. There often are questions about Unitarian Universalism. I wonder X or Y or Z about our congregation or Unitarian Universalism more broadly. And or, this is the third category, which I think is the juiciest one. I'm actively wrestling with X. I haven't figured out X. Could you please share some words or thoughts about that? I want to encourage that. It's very rare in our society that you get the opportunity to ask something that's live for you, something that you're truly wrestling with spiritually, ethically, morally. This is one such opportunity to do so. So give it some thought. Don't rush to fill out the form. Spend a moment or two in reflection as to what could be meaningful and useful to you. Now, the form itself, when you get to it, we invite you to share your name and a contact phone or email at the top. Please do so. Any questions submitted without a name or contact details, I won't answer them. They'll just go out into the next pile and we'll move on and pick another one. Part of this is that there are often questions that we don't have time to get to, but they may require circling back to somebody and offering a little bit of support. We can't do that if it's blank or anonymous. In addition to which, as a general practice in community, we do things accountably with one another, not anonymously. Now, I don't read the names when I pull the question, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's more so if there's usefulness in circling back to somebody, we're able to do that. So please include the name and some contact information. Please do not write essays. It's impossible for me to read a paragraph, much less 2 paragraphs up here. The more succinct and precise your question is stated, the better. And the easier it will be for me to move with it and move into it. Handwriting's often an issue. Don't hesitate to use block print if you know that's going to be better for you. If you're online, you can put your questions into the chat. A member of our AV team will do their best to transcribe that question and add it to our physical questions that we are holding here. That should cover the bases. And with that, I want to invite you to spend a few minutes in reflection. We will have instrumental music playing while we do so, meditative music. When we begin to wrap up this section, I will invite the ushers to come through and do a collection of the questions that you've come up with. But for now, take a moment to reflect and write. I'd invite our ushers to come forward and collect the questions. If you've finished, please take a moment to fold your page in half, and you can just pass it to the end of the row that you're in. If you need another moment or two to keep writing, please feel free to do so, and then just make sure you get your questions independently to the ushers. Each month we take a little bit of time in one of our worship services to learn more about the important social justice work that our congregation is engaged in. This month, Joe Libben and Kyla Boyce will be sharing more about the Jackson Social Welfare Fund. Would you welcome Joe and Kyla into our pulpit?
Good morning. We're here to share the story of George L. and Bessie Florence Hazelton Jackson and their bequest to our congregation. The Jacksons were a wealthy couple who lived near our former building at 1917 Washtenaw. They were long-term members of our congregation and staunch supporters of civil liberties. As they aged, they increasingly relied on Reverend Ed and Annette Redmond for comfort and pastoral care. Bessie Jackson passed a few years before George Jackson, who died in 1955. He set aside a generous portion of their estate in two bequests to our congregation. The first provided capital funds for the church, and the second created the Jackson Social Welfare Fund, from which our grants are dispersed. And our investments committee manages these funds outside of the UUAA budget.
The Jackson Fund bequest requires that we use its income to advance two goals. The first, understanding and acceptance of the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, and the second, promoting peaceful means of conflict resolution. Briefly, the First Amendment guarantees us freedom of religion, free speech and press, the right to assemble peacefully, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Each year, the Jackson Social Welfare Fund Committee asks organizations to send us proposals that align with this mission established by the Jacksons. Together, as a group, we evaluate these proposals and award grants. This committee is doubly special in that it includes 6 members from our congregation and 2 from the Ann Arbor Friends meeting.
Jackson Social Welfare Fund grants have helped many hundreds of organizations over 7 decades, almost 7 decades. Through the fund, our congregation long supported the ACLU of Michigan, and notably, they don't need our support anymore, which is great, and other organizations working for separation of church and state and for freedom of speech. Generally, we're able to provide grants as large as $5,000 for projects large and small, nationally, internationally, and even hyperlocal to our community.
In recent years, we've supported the Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, Defending Rights and Dissent, the Disability Network, Ground Cover News, ICPJ, and Nonprofit Enterprise at Work, Safe and Just Michigan, and 3 separate Quaker-based projects. This year, we awarded 8 2026 grants in varying amounts, totaling $32,257. Our longstanding support for well-known First Amendment organizations continued, and other grants lent support for creative arts programs for incarcerated individuals, dignity and self-expression for those experiencing homelessness, and the rights of people with disabilities and global peace projects.
As our congregation continues work toward our Vision 2050 goals, we've talked about many ways we can work together to forge a more just and peaceful world. The Jacksons' legacy is one way we do that. Nearly 70 years since its inception, the fund remains a robust, steadfast means to advance the principles of the First Amendment and promote peaceful resolution of conflicts.
The Jacksons issued a call that rings down through the decades, and they gave us the financial means to answer it. We will continue to seek on-mission proposals and make grants that help our congregation live out our UU shared values, building a better community, region, and nation. Thank you. Have you ever wondered what it takes to keep a congregation like ours running? Besides the practical items like solar panels, heat pumps, HVAC, electricity, and internet, there is a larger engine at work here. One that is powered by the staff and the volunteers who do so much every day of the week to ensure that we have a safe, comfortable place to meet. We are here because of you, because people like you have found a way to be generous with their time, their talents, and their treasures, to make UUAA a wonderful, supportive home for generations to come. This Sunday, as we do each Sunday, we ask you to engage collectively in the spiritual practice of generosity, one of our 6 shared UU values, the others being justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, and interdependence. And as with all things UUAA, we strive to keep love at the center of everything. Today's offering goes to support the ministries and programs of UUAA, and there are many ways to contribute. You may connect digitally by visiting uuaa.org/giving, or you can text UUAA to 73256, or you may also leave cash or checks in the basket as it passes you by. I would like to invite the ushers to come forward once more, as today's offering will be gratefully gathered. Allison for that wonderful music. Would the ushers now please come forward? And I'd ask you to rise in body or spirit as you are comfortably able, as we say the words of dedication. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these are offerings. Thank you. You may be seated.
So just to set a little bit of context, I'm usually able to get to about 5 to 7 questions on a given Sunday morning. Depends on how complex a given question is. I've obviously not seen any of these before the moment they're drawn, so I'll ask for forbearance if I take a moment to think. But thank you for participating and for sharing what I'm sure are some meaningful, heartfelt questions. So our first one, do this. How does UUAA address other religious groups that call this church's religious acceptance as heretical? Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so I can't speak for all of UUAA because each of you is also UUAA, so there are probably many answers to this, but I can tell you that I've been ordained 20 years as of last fall, so I'm starting my 21st year of ordained ministry, thereabouts. I have always, it doesn't matter where my ministry has been, I have always called local colleagues when I first began a ministry and invited them out for coffee or lunch, something like this, and that has always included also my conservative colleagues and neighbors, those that may be evangelical, those that may be deeply opposed to the things that we believe and stand for and work for in our social justice work, because I believe you can talk to anyone. But in practice, in those 20 to 21 years of ordained ministry, I have never once gotten a call back from a conservative colleague. I think that's a shame. I find that just deeply disappointing. Lunch doesn't hurt anything. Hell, I'll buy. I've always offered to buy, you know? In fact, the only way to begin improving things is by starting to talk to one another. So I've always found it deeply disappointing that I have never been able to work it out and actually get one of those invites accepted. So I'd say that's one possibility, one example is, you know, even if a group it doesn't necessarily agree with us or deeply disagrees with us, we can still talk to them, you know. That's the beginning of relationship. So and each of you might have an answer to this question as well. This is a good moment to mention or remind us, as we know. What I offer as senior minister of UUAA is never definitive or imposed on any of you. I offer one perspective as one Unitarian Universalist, and each of you is able to have your own perspective. So that's my 20-second periodic reminder of that. That's the fun of being non-creedal. This was actually an empty form, so somebody didn't have something to offer. 2 empty ones in a row. All right, let's pick from a different place in here. I've been struggling with moral injury over the last year or so because my employer's leadership values are not aligned with the mission of the agency. What does Unitarian Universalism have to say about moral injury from a misalignment of values? Yeah, I have to give a little bit of context. If you're not familiar with the language of moral injury, our theologians in Unitarian Universalism have been writing about this for at least 15 years. It's been a good long stretch that we've been involved in this field. And it began or is partly embedded with our work in supporting members of the armed forces. What does it mean to be a member of the armed forces and to be required up to and including killing another human being, or being part of a chain of events that can involve the killing of human beings? It's believed by moral ethicists and theologians that we have a fundamental moral inclination within us, some of which may be birthright and some of which is acculturation, but nonetheless a fundamental moral underpinning. And when we're required to act against that underpinning, it is a moral injury. It is a harm to our inner sense of morality, our inner sense of who we are. And it can be profound. This can be understood as one of the things that contributes to PTSD, by the way, for many of those who serve in the armed forces. Okay, so this individual is inviting us to reflect on the nature of moral injury if you're working for, let's say, company, nonprofit, agency of the government, or whatever else, where there is a misalignment of values. Yeah, that's not small. Okay, so first, the nature of moral injury is such that it requires, I think, significant support, emotional support, psychological support, and I would hope for anybody who is encountering situations where they're having to enact or follow dictates, guidelines, policies that are fundamentally against what one believes in. I hope, first and foremost, that you have support. That includes the support of family, the support of friends, the support of community, but also, I hope, support of a therapist and anybody else who can be of professional help with this type of need. Yeah, I've been in this situation. Probably, there's degrees to which we could talk about this. There's slight harm to one's moral underpinning, and there can be significant injurious harm to one's moral underpinning. I think one has to assess where you are on that continuum. How severely are you being asked to contradict what you fundamentally believe as a moral human being? The more severe it is, the more I would say one must question how you can get out. I don't know that that's sustainable. If the severity is high, my heart would hope that you would find a way to leave that situation. Now, for those who can find the courage, conviction, strength, the support to weather those circumstances, being an agent of change from the inside, an organization, a nonprofit, a community, a government agency, there's tremendous power in being able to be an agent of change from the inside. It's not easy, and it's not for everyone. So I think there, too, some deep discernment and assessment, personal assessment is needed. That's a profound question there. Thank you for offering that. Why do we no longer sing our song of aspiration and stand for our covenant? Yeah, this is such a good question in so many ways. So, in the sense that we are non-creedal, we are also non-fixed in anything and everything that we do that one could call in a typical Christian denomination, liturgy. So liturgy in a typical Christian denomination, which we are not, by the way, is a fixed order of what happens and the way certain things happen. So if we were in a Catholic or an Episcopal church, you stand at very specific times, you sit at very specific times, you say the same words in the same order week after week together. We do have some elements that are like that, but we have a lot of elements that are not like that. And we have some elements that appear periodically, and we have some elements that appear all the time. And even if something appears all the time, or frequently, actually that's a better word, frequently, we can mix it up and not do any of it. All of them are on a list of options, and it's up to your worship leader. So essentially, I am your head liturgist, which means that as the community's called spiritual leader, what I'm called to is the pulpit. What I'm called to is the spiritual leadership of our community. What I'm called to is also overarching oversight of the Sunday experience that we have together. I hold ultimate responsibility for that. So I make choices. And there are times when some things repeat, there are times when some things are periodic, and there's times when we may not do something at all. And there are judgment calls in that. So the next thing to understand is that everything we do in Unitarian Universalist community involves balance. And the balance is a wide-ranging set of needs and personal preferences of those who are in our pews that can never be met in any one given Sunday. It's impossible. We're too diverse of a community for that to happen. Think of it. We have folks who are atheistic. We have folks who are nature-oriented, science-oriented, Buddhist practitioners, devout Christian, devoutly Jewish, devoutly Hindu, whatever it might be. There is no way that any one Sunday uniformly appeals to all of those people. So we make choices and we mix things up and we utilize a variety of styles and modes of engagement. And ultimately, I help us make judgment calls in that regard. And so there's certain things that we have over time moved from being fairly regular to periodic. And there are things that maybe have been periodic that we made more regular, and there are things we may not do at all that we did 15 years ago or 20 years ago. So that's part of the mix. What I do is annually we do a survey related to our worship practices and our worship experience, and we invite folks to share. And then we publicly share with the entire community the data, the raw data and the analysis of the data that we receive, so that everyone can know and read what the wide set of needs, desires related to worship are, and understand how we're balancing those needs. So thank you. That's kind of a meta question about, like, how do we do this and how do we make decisions related to this? I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm getting older and I'm concerned about how I'll be remembered. What is the most meaningful memory I can leave? Thank you for this question. Thank you for the vulnerability in this question. I'm touched by it. Yeah, I'm likely younger than you, the person asking this. Well, I know who wrote the question, so I am. But I've started to wonder about this even, and in a way that I didn't when I was in my 20s. I think this is one of the things of aging is with the passage of years, we do start to wonder, how will we be remembered? What will be remembered of us? Who will remember us? I think, isn't it, I don't remember exact context, but it's often said that it's not the things that we've accumulated, it's not the bank balance that we've accumulated, but rather it's the relationships that we've cultivated, nurtured, and maintained in which we are remembered. Beyond remembered, I would add cherished. Cherished. And so, I think one of the things that is always a little bit of a sadness for me when I can see, either close in or from a distance, that an individual or a small group of individuals, whatever it might be, they're not concerned about their impact on other people. They're not thinking about the impact they're having. There's always that sadness in me of, do you understand what you're doing? This is how we're remembered. If we cause harm, if we're short, if we're rude, dismissive, condescending. That's how we're remembered. Not by all, but by some, for sure. And wouldn't we want to be remembered in another way, in a different way than that? By many, if not most, of the people we interact with. And therein lies the day-to-day work. It's day-to-day work, truly, of being present to ourselves, what's arising within ourselves, and doing the best that we can to show up as a presence of compassion, of love, of caring, of something positive, inspiration, giving others hope, helping others find meaning in their life, possibility in their life. These are the people we remember, aren't they? Think of the teachers you've known, grade school or up. It's the ones that believed in us, that offered us hope, that mirrored back to us that we were good people that had something to offer the world. Those are the people we remember. Being one of those human beings is part of our calling. How might each of us be one of those human beings who can be remembered deeply, and not just remembered deeply and well, but cherished? Thank you for a beautiful question. How can we be filled with loving kindness? Okay, this is almost a perfect follow-on to the question that I just answered. So if the work is to be cherished and to show up in a good way, how do you do it? The person didn't ask this, but I'll add it. Yeah, how do you do it, particularly when you're frustrated or angry? That's really the work, right? I mean, if everything's going along smoothly, being filled with loving kindness is easy. It's not hard. The challenge to be showing up as love and kindness is when it's difficult, which is when internally we're feeling frustrated or we're feeling angry. And I think the work there is being present to our own internal reality. Suppressing anger, suppressing frustration never really works. And so we have to first be aware of what's happening in ourselves. And can't it be an act of kindness? Can't it be an act of love to, rather than explode like a volcano, causing harm, letting lava spew on the world and on people who are near us, to say honestly, hey, I'm feeling a lot right now. I need a pause on this conversation, please. And I say that out of care in our relationship. You know, it's because I care about you, can we pause this right now? I need a break. And asking for or inviting a break because we care about someone, one, that's an act of love to do that. And two, it then gives you the space and the time to go away, reflect, get support that you need, understand what the issue's really about, what was triggered in you that is saying, hey, this matters, this is really important, or a boundary has been crossed, so that you can come back to the situation and engage in it in a way that is reflective of love and kindness. Thank you for that, too. That's another beautiful question about how we show up in the world. We're doing okay on time today. How do you feel about speaking at the pulpit for candidates? I assume this means candidates for political election. You know, I'm a little bit old school about this. So, well, okay, let me give you the context. Conservative congregations in the United States and conservative ministers have been fairly unshy about inviting political candidates who are actively in an election process into their pulpit, into their chancel on a Sunday morning, standing right next to them, introducing them to the community, and or the minister saying on a Sunday morning, hey, this is a great person, take a look at this person. I'm not really, actually a lot of that goes right up to the line, if not crossing the line of what is supposed to be allowed for churches in our nonprofit status, and yet it has routinely happened on the conservative side of the spectrum. I've known this for 20 plus years. It has deeply frustrated me. And I think one of the things that's embedded in that frustration is while that other approach has been quite common, especially in evangelical and non-affiliated churches, we, on the diametrically opposite side of the religious spectrum, steer so far away from the line, we won't even go near the line to say, hey, something's at stake in this election, something's really important. Some candidates are speaking to this and some aren't. By the way, we're allowed to say all of that. That's absolutely allowed. We're allowed to critique elected leaders. We can absolutely do that. I could probably critique candidates on issues. And, my training is, I've been doing this for a while now. So my training is very UU and probably a bit more stereotypical of what we've done in our denomination traditionally. I would never endorse a candidate for political office from the pulpit. That's a short answer. Well, it's also a context, but that's the short answer. And like I said, it's nuanced. For those of you who follow this closely enough, you may have noticed that the Trump administration changed the IRS rules about 6 months ago to allow for more of this. But the internal discussion in our denomination amongst clergy leaders was that we were going to try and adhere to our traditional understanding, which makes sense, by the way, because think of it, if you potentially cross a line, who is this administration going to come after? It's folks like us. We know this, by the way. So yeah, our internal thinking as a movement is to keep doing what we've typically done, although I'm more willing to get closer to the line than avoid the line altogether, which I think if you've been here for some time, you have that sense of me. Okay. I find that questioning the tenets of my faith actually helps to strengthen them. What role does doubt play in your spiritual life? Ooh, okay, so this is aimed towards me, but let me also make this communal a little bit, because I like this question. So one of the metaphors I like to use for community is, hey, we're from a mining state, right? And so what do we do when we gather those rocks up by Lake Superior? Often they're tumbled together to make them smooth and pretty, right? And so the tumbling together of rocks is a refining process. And that's often what we are doing together in community. We show up with our own individual perspectives, our own ideas, our thoughts, and guess what? They are tested in community. And they may need tweaking, because we'll bump up against other people. People will ask us smart and savvy questions, and then our own understandings will get refined. It's a tumbling together process for the purposes of refinement. How do we practice doing that well? Because you can also imagine that when you're tumbling together, that the rough edges can scrape and cut. We don't want that. We want to avoid that when that's possible. That requires a lot of commitment to respect, to dignity, to being with one another in the midst of disagreements, whether they're small or whether they're big. Okay, so then that's my communal answer to that. What role does doubt play in my spiritual life? Yeah, I'm not a good person to answer that. I question myself a lot, probably more than I need to. But I find, but you may never see that. It's often on the inside that I do that. And with my own teachers, with spiritual teachers. Yeah, so actually it is the same, isn't it? Yeah, I have my own little tumbling and refining process. Sometimes it does happen with you all in community. Because UUs are not shy to tell you if they disagree with something you've said from the pulpit. I can promise you that. So sometimes the tumbling and refining is with each of you, but often in my own deeper things that I'm working on personally, I take that to my spiritual teachers, I take that to my therapist, I take that to professional mentors. I have all of those, by the way. And they work with me in the refining and in the feedback, and have you thought of this, have you thought of that? So I do engage in a very intentional process to work with my own. Doubt is a reflection of, or a recognition of growth, that we haven't perfectly figured something out yet. And so it's a good thing. And in fact, we should probably doubt more. Isn't the challenge in our civic life today too much certainty? Frankly, I think that's the problem. We should all hold a little bit more loving doubt. And what I mean by that is like, what have I maybe missed in being so sure or indignant or righteous? What have I maybe missed? And notice, as soon as you ask yourself that question, what have I missed? A softness emerges as opposed to the hardness of the certainty. We want to live with more of that softness. The softness is actually a strength. Let's see, yeah, we've got a little bit of time. Oh my. It's a handwriting question, that's what I'm puzzling out. Can you share some thoughts on those of us who have, this comes up. This is a regular question. On those of us who have an estranged adult son, daughter, or other family member. So some version of this question almost always comes up in a question box. It's an estranged family member, community member, coworker, or somebody with whom there's profound disagreement and difference. I don't know how to interact with them. What do I do at the family gathering? Thanksgiving is only a couple months away. I have to see this person. There's some version of this question very typically in these question boxes. Okay, I don't know the nature of the estrangement. Is it that the person doesn't want to talk to you, or you haven't felt comfortable talking to the person? Or is it both ways? Is it mutual? I don't want to make assumptions there about what the nature of the estrangement is or which directions it is in. Let me share this. I have in my family of origin had moments of fairly significant estrangement. In a cultural context, I'm of Asian Indian descent. In Asian Indian culture, estrangement amongst family members it's really unheard of. Like, it's not a great thing. It's like one of the worst things that could possibly happen, and it's avoided at all cost. It's a complete and utter lack of failure of relationship on the part of everybody involved, if it gets to that. Yeah, and I have known that in my immediate and extended family relationships, and it's particularly over the past decade. By the way, this is my 9th year that we're starting a ministry together. So when I say past decade, that is primarily the time I've been here with you all. It's in the past decade that I've had the experience of some of those estrangements softening. And in multiple ways, immediate family, immediate biological family, but also extended family. There's work and there's surprises. So let me speak about the work part. The work part is, it takes a lot of effort internally to be able to show up for one of these relationships that feel fundamentally wounded and not hold on to the victimhood of feeling wounded in that relationship. Can we let it go? Here too, mental health supports, therapists, spiritual teachers, I encourage all of that. It is always relevant. It is always helpful. Those good supports can never hurt. So can we let go of our sense of wounding? Then I'd say the next question, and this came to me from my teachers and support folks. Can you let go of needing something? Affirmation. Feeling loved, feeling seen, feeling validated. What if that person is simply fundamentally incapable of ever giving you that? They might be. Can you let go of it? If you're holding on to it, that, by the way, the point I made before about victimhood. If you're holding on to it, that's what it feeds. I was wronged. I was wronged by this person. So, being able to let go of wanting and needing anything from that person is part of letting go of the victimhood piece. If we can get that, this is a lot of work, by the way. I'm saying this quickly, but this is a lot of work. If you can get that far, then actually, what does it mean to just show up and talk? Even if it's just hello. I've been thinking of you. It'd be nice if you didn't hang up the phone. All right, maybe they do, but you tried. That's on them then. If they don't want relationship, that's on them. But I'd say maybe you can send periodically the signal that the channel is open on your side. That's possible to do if you've truly let go of all the rest. Let go of all the rest and just keep sending the signal that hey, I'm open and we can talk. There's no problem with that. I mentioned that sometimes there's surprises. And I think I shared this sometime last year. I just met with one of my cousins. And in Indian culture, our cousins are our brothers and sisters. So I'll refer to her as my sister. I just met with one of my cousins/sister, she's my sister, who I haven't seen since, it's been 35 years. It's been a long time since I've seen her. And, lots of specific assumptions, potentially on both sides. But we've circled back, and there's a surprise. Relationship was open. And not just that, you could feel it, we had no expectations of one another. And if there were any sense of feeling wounded or abandoned or it had been let go of, we decided to just meet each other as adults, as we are now, and see how we're doing. So sometimes there's surprises, sometimes there's work to do, and if we can do some of that work, maybe we can just keep affirming that the channel of communication is open. We're a little bit over time. Okay, so yeah, that's good. Let me see how many we did today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Eight today. That's pretty good. So I thank you. If you participated in today's question box service, thank you for having done that. As I promised, I personally go through and read each of these questions, and know that if there are themes that emerge that many of you or several of you are wondering similar types of things, those themes will appear in our future worship services. Thank you for being a part of this.
Would you stand as you're comfortably willing and able as we turn together in our teal hymnal to sing number 1028, The Fire of Commitment, number 1028. The light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice. mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Beloveds, take a moment to look around this sanctuary once more. Wave to those who are joining us online. These are your siblings in faith, your companions on this life journey, learning alongside you day by day, practicing day by day what it means to be human. Please continue carrying in your heart those essential questions that help define your journey, our collective journey as well. Those questions matter, and know that you're not alone in them. We hold them together, we figure them out together. Go in peace and go in love until we're gathered once again as a community. Blessed be. Amen.